Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With FishingBooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. FishingBooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to FishingBooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
Welcome to DSC's Campfires with Larry Weishuhn, a unique blend of hunting, fishing, wildlife conservation, and the outdoor lifestyle. DSC's Campfires is brought to you by DSC, Conservation, Education, and Advocacy. Hornady, accurate, deadly, dependable. Taurus, award-winning revolvers and pistols. Stealth Vision, high-tech, precision-driven equipment for today's modern hunter. Red 55 Winery, signature wines from Emmy Award-winning country artist Miranda Lambert, owned by Rick and Beverly Lambert. And the Choctaw Hunting Lodge, home of some of the finest hunting in North America. Now, here's Larry.
Mr. Sam O, there is an old song that I remember from when I was a youngster whose words included "Summertime and the living is easy." Do you agree with that?
Yeah, well, it's gotten easier for me because I gave up the hay, but yes, sir. I think this is going to be the very first summer that I have had in my lifetime that I can actually enjoy doing what I like to do, and that is, as you've seen, taking videos and food plots and working with wildlife. That's what I've always wanted to do, and by golly, I'm going to do it this year.
Good for you. So those words, that song kind of ring true at the moment. I love hearing that. You know, back
yes,
when I first heard that song, we were hauling hay in little square bales in 100-degree temperatures and 99, percent humidity type thing, and I wasn't too sure there was any truth to that, but I'm glad to see that it's finally coming true with you this year. You have been busy with so many different things, and there are so many things I want to talk to you about this morning, but at the same time, tell me kind of what's going on in your part of the world. I know we're past, you've got fawns on the ground. You've been showing those on your video, and I want you to tell people about that. And then also, you've been showing an old mama bear with 3 little ones as well, too. So, gosh, a lot of things going on up there in your part of the world.
Yes, sir, there is. I think, Larry, that this is one of the most prolific as far as fawns hitting the ground goes that I've ever seen. And I'm talking about all babies. I'm talking about ducks, geese,
yes, sir.
Bears, fawns, and I don't know as to what it's got to do with the dry weather that we've got now. I know that helps a little bit because things don't get drowned out, but at the same time, it's been a great year for the babies. Let's put it that way. And but the fawns, they started showing up this year. The first one I saw was about the middle of May, and I've had fawns showing up a little earlier than that in the years previous, and there may have been some this year. But there again, since I'm not cutting hay, I'm not seeing them that early. But yeah, the fawns look like they're doing well. As a matter of fact, I just put a video on this morning that this makes 22 fawns that I've counted so far.
Oh my goodness! Fawns. Perfect. It's going to be interesting with that is in the last several years, I have kept record of the fawns that I've seen in the fall. And I'm talking about the time when you can see, the difference between bucks and does. on so many places the last few years, we've had a preponderance of buck fawns, as high as 65 to 70% on several of the properties that I've looked at. It's going to be interesting to see if that might be the case this year, and you'll be able to tell probably about in October, November.
Yeah, that what I usually do in my food plots, what I have done is I cut little paths through there with my brush hog.
Right.
And when they come in later in the summer and early fall, those little fawns they sort of get out there and congregate in their age class, you know. Mm-hmm. And I can get in my elevated blind and really tell what I've got as far as the sex goes of the fawns goes then. But yeah, in the last several years, last 2 years, I've had an overabundance actually of buck fawns showing up. Now, what will be interesting is just like you said, to see if that happens this year or if there's more doe fawns this year. You know, the good Lord has a way of balancing that out. You know, so regardless of what we do or what we think, that takes precedence over us. You know. So.
You know what? It truly does. But it's been interesting. Excuse me. We've had so much rain where I live here in Texas that you'll hear me cough and wheeze and all kinds of things. There's an abundance of pollen we don't normally have, and oh my God, mm-hmm. The molds are running rampant down here because of the rainfall. And that's not a complaint, believe me, because Texas is a thirsty state, and we'll take the rain whenever and wherever we can. But again, going back to several of the properties that I've dealt with, we have had an abundance of buck fawns the last several years. And not only can you see it in the buck fawns, you can see it in the number of yearling and 2-year-old and 3-year-old now and even 4-year-old, because I'm going back on some of those properties where it's been that way for about 4 years. You can see that naturally, even though we've tried to help manage, we have narrowed our Buck-to-Doe ratio in a lot of those places. Or almost all of those places, actually, when I think about it.
Yes, sir, that's happening here too. I've seen. I can't remember exactly what my ratio was last year, but it was. It was pretty. It's pretty much balancing out.
Right.
And that's. I'm tickled to see that, of course, and of course you can see that in my videos, of course, too. The number of bucks that are showing up as opposed to the does in my food plots this year, and. It's a given that if your buck-to-doe ratio is close, you're really going to have a lot better herd. You know, your herd management. It sort of, well, that's part of it. You can see that herd management going on in that.
It is, and it's a little bit more fun too. I mean, I love watching does and all that kind of thing, but I really like seeing bucks. And with that being the case, you get to see a few more and all that kind of great stuff. I've noticed on some of your, and we're talking about here about the beginning of July. I've noticed in your videos that you post, and I want you to tell first of all people where they can go see those, but secondly, you're seeing a fair number in terms of what we're talking about with bucks in bachelor herds as well too.
Yes, sir, I am. And there again, it's really funny how those bachelor herds, they sort of congregate in their age class. You'll have 1.5 to 2-year-olds in one bunch over to the right, and then you'll have your 3 to 4-year-olds in the middle, and then your 5 and 6-year-old, your older bucks to the left, or vice versa. And yes, that is also a way you can tell what you're going to have later on, of course. And I'm just tickled. When I see those younger bucks, I smile just as big as I do when I see the bigger bucks, because I know what's coming on.
You know what? I've always been that way too. I love seeing those younger bucks. Of course, I'm looking for the older bucks. I've always been one of those that wants to hunt mature bucks, but seeing those younger bucks, I know that we got a bunch of them coming on, and that, just makes me feel that much better. What about your antler development? And then again, tell people where they can see your videos that you post on Facebook. But what about antler development this year?
Okay, first thing, let me tell them about where they can go to. It's called Creek, Deer, and Wildlife Management. That's on Facebook. Just type it in and they can go right into it. I had it where they had to get approval, but now I've sort of got it where they can get right into it because I've got so many people wanting to get in on it. I'd have to sit here all day to approve them all. So,
that is great news.
Thanks to you and Luke, but Luke Clayton. But anyway, the antler development is really looking good. And there again, years ago, Larry, you and I can't remember. I think it was Bob Folkrod. I keep talking about you folks on one of your shows years ago, which is the one thing that I'll never forget. You talked about the different plants and what they, the micronutrients in them.
Yes, sir.
That went to certain parts of the deer, of course, into the antlers too. And the way I plant my food plots with a number of different variety of seed, it sort of, balances out what they need. And as far as antler development goes, I know everybody's seen old Twisty too. I always name my bucks, and he is really looking good. He's got bases on him as big as my fist, So.
Oh my gracious.
He's a big buck, and of course, he's got I don't know where it's a brother, but he's got an accomplice that he has been hanging around with. I haven't seen him yet this year, but I look for him to come in soon.
Yes, sir.
The antler development is really looking good. Got some wide ones, got some tall ones, got the big bases, and actually getting back to Twisty too. I think he's going to be a 13-pointer this year, maybe.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So and when you have that later on in a buck's life, I think it's a pretty good testament as to what your management is doing. So. Of course, you're getting the age into him then, and the one thing I have noticed around here in Craig County, we've got a lot of big bucks here now, and I think people are watching and listening and understanding that you've got to lay off that trigger to get those wall mounts, So.
Yes, sir. It really makes a difference once you get them into those older age classes, past that 4-year-old path, and particularly past the 4-year-old stage. I mean, there's some big bucks that show up at 4 and even at 3 sometimes. But if you can get them in that 5, 6, and that even older 7 age class, at that point it seemed like they're not chasing quite as hard like they did when they were 2, 3-year-old or even 4-year-old, and so they come through the rut in better shape. And as a result of guys like you who do such a great job in making sure that there's something quality for them to eat on a daily basis, they come out of that rut in great shape. And so anything that's not required for just pure old maintenance on the body can be channeled in antler development. It makes such a big difference. Actually, I'm tickled to hear all this stuff because, as you well know, I'm going to be heading up your way in November this year. You've got me wishing my life away every time I look at your videos, or visit or send back and forth. We text and email. We go together quite a bit. I'm going, oh my gosh, I want to be there. Come on, November.
Yeah, well, like you say, you hate to wish your life away, but I can't wait for it myself. I'm looking so much forward to that. And of course, we've had our first handshake already down at the rendezvous, and that was a glorious day for me. And
same here.
But Larry, going back, getting back to you again, you're sort of the grandfather of all this, even up here, and a lot of people listen to you now. I've turned a lot of people on to you, and they're, they listen to me. Don't get me wrong, but
they should.
I think old Larry Weishuhn, he solidifies the fact that what I'm doing, it works.
Well, we were fortunate. I was fortunate. I came along at a good time with all this interest, but just really getting started in whitetail, and we were involved in a lot of early research. But then we did a lot of trial and error on country all the way across North America with, with different management schemes and all those kind of things, and learned what worked and also learned what to stay away from. And I think sometimes that's every bit as important as, learning what to do. But we were fortunate. with my coming up, we have got an evening that and people up in your part of the world can come by, and you want to tell them about that a little bit?
Yeah, we're going to have it at well, I can't even remember the name of the Baptist church here, but anyway, it's Donna's church. But we're going to have a little meet and greet, and there we're going to have a certain number of tickets that we're going to be selling for that. I'll have that on my site when time gets here, and we're going to put them on sale. We're going to have you here, and yeah, it's going to be. We're going to have a little catered dinner, and I think you're going to give a little chat and like I say, a meet and greet, and I think it's going to be something that the people around here that they've never seen before. They've never had that here, and so especially with someone of your magnitude or your fame, let's put it that way. And,
well, I'm looking forward to it, because what we're going to do is, on my part, is I'm going to tell a hunting story or two, and then we're going to open up the floor for question and answers. Excuse me. And hopefully I will come up with the proper answers, but and I'll be very open with people. So if you ask me a question, if I know the answer, I'll tell you. If I don't know, I will tell you. I have no earthly idea, but let's figure out where we can learn a little bit more about this together. So I'm really looking forward to that, not just the hunting and spending time. And also, since we mentioned that, we'll have all that information coming out a little bit later on Facebook, and I'll have it on Instagram and LinkedIn and a bunch of other places that we're doing things with right now. But we'll as to where they can go to get the tickets and times and all that other kind of good stuff. But looking forward to hunting with you. Now, I'm also anxious to see the place that I'm staying on your property. Tell us, people, a little bit about that.
Well, that's my old home place. It's we call it the Craig Creek Shady Rest. Now, it's Airbnb that we've opened up, and we're getting a lot of guests now. It's not booked completely solid, but we're getting enough to where Donna and my stepmom, they have to go down and clean it after every session. And, they're getting enough time in between bookings, but and then sometimes we've got them back to back. But people are really enjoying it, and we had some people in there this weekend. One of the little boys, he went down to the creek and caught 23 fish. He was tickled.
My goodness.
And of course you see the videos of the geese and the deer crossing the creek that I put on there. But yeah, it's my old home place. It's 3-bedroom, a full kitchen, a living room. And we're working on this summer possibly getting the upstairs refurbished in that old house, and what I plan on doing is tearing out the old staircase and maybe putting a new one in there and trying to get it to where I've got a place up there, and I think you will really like it. Of course, you and I are getting to the age; it's going to be hard for us to get up there one of these days. But
I will figure out a way.
But I think it would make a perfect office for people like yourself. Now, I know you're going to be doing some work while you're here, but at the same time, it would just be perfect. You can get up there and look out. You can look over the creek while you're working. You probably won't do much work while you're up there because you'll be watching the creek.
When you said that, I'm going, oh my God, if you did that, I'd have to pull a shade across the window or something like that, because I'd be sitting there looking. Oh my God, did you see that over? Oh my goodness, look at that kind of thing.
Well, Larry, I want to talk to you about something that you had on here the other day on one of your talks. You were talking about the antlers that you folks had gathered up, and I want I'm doing this, where you folks have taken a drill and drilled down in them and gotten samples out of them to see what the phosphorus and all that, what all was in that antler, so you could tell what the bucks needed. Okay. Now, at the same time, you also pointed out that if you see the little mouse scratches, whatever, on where they're chewing on them, you're doing okay. And of course, if you see big chew holes where something big's been in it, then you're lacking something in that than that
right.
antler. So, but with that, when you talked about that, I was thinking last year, you know, the antlers that I found only had the little mouse chew marks on it, nothing big. So that's telling me that micronutrient wise, I'm doing well here. You know, so you may want to. If you don't mind, can you hit on that for the
absolutely? I'd love to.
That?
Years ago, Dr. Larry Warner, who unfortunately has passed away, Dr. Warner was with the Texas A&M Extension Service in Uvalde, where I lived, and he, like I, was very interested in bigger antlers. So, because I had contacts all over North America, I had friends of mine from areas where they had big antlers and produced small antlers and all those kind of things. Every kind of antlers thing from across North America send in shed antlers, freshly shed antlers. And we went in through Texas A&M's ability there as far as the laboratory and checked those for a variety of different things, including some of the micronutrients, if you want to call them that, the minerals that were, to see if in those bigger antlers, if there was a constant as compared to the areas where they were producing smaller antlers. And of course, overall nutrition was important, but what we found was those antlers that were bigger antlers in those areas that came from where they produced big antlers, they were higher in copper, zinc, and manganese. And so then through the years ago, both Larry and I did a lot of stuff with Purina when they first started coming out with a deer ration, because we fed a lot of deer here in Texas. And so we were able to incorporate those and do research and found out that, yep, when we increased the copper, zinc, and manganese to a certain level, and it's been too long for me to remember the exact amount, but when we did that, we increased the size of antlers. And so that became very important. Then we started looking at, I asked people to send in shed antlers that were old, that had been chewed upon, and we were seeing the same thing over different parts of the state of Texas as well too. If you found a shed antler and you could tell there were tiny little teeth marks, like maybe from the size of a squirrel or rabbit or a rat or a mouse or smaller, you know, it was very obvious. Also, if you found shed antlers that looked like they'd been chewed on where you had cattle or the deer or whatever, so we did some analyzing on those as well too, and found that those places where there were just rat, mice, or rodent chews on it, they were higher in almost every content as far as of minerals and to the point of protein as well too. So what that told us is that those animals that were chewing on the antlers, they were craving something. We'd find rib bones where a deer or a cow had died, and you could see where cattle or deer had chewed on it. And so what we did then is we went into those areas knowing that there had to be some kind of shortage in terms of minerals, and we would set up mineral licks. And of course, in Texas and in the states we were dealing with at the time, that was legal to do so. There's some states now that I think have outlawed some of doing some of that kind of thing. But then we found too that in those areas where those antlers had been chewed on by deer or cattle, when we started putting out the mineral, and we were using a mixture of a variety of things, but we found that the utilization of those minerals was really very heavy in those areas where those deer and cattle had been chewing on the bones or the antlers. And over a period of time, by increasing the mineral content in or availability of it, we saw an increase in both somewhat body size and certainly in antler size in comparative cohorts of yearling 2.5, 3.5, looking at records that they had prior to the time that we did this, to opposed to 2 or 3 years after we started doing this. So to me, that's a good indication when you start seeing, if you start finding shed antlers, whether or bones, like maybe leg bones that were left, and you've got cattle, sheep, goats, horses, whatever, or deer in that area, and they're chewed upon, and you can tell that they've really been gnawed as compared to the little sharp teeth of the rodents, that you've probably got a situation there that you really need to do something to try to improve, and that can include setting out mineral licks or doing a certain amount of fertilization of food plots can help that as well too. So there's ways you can correct it. But if you find shed antlers, and even if they're old and they're just rat and mice, look like rodents have been chewing on them, you're probably in pretty good shape mineral-wise in that particular area.
Absolutely, I understand. And there again, well, I don't know whether you saw the video that I put on this morning, the old doe licking my sulfur block or not. But
no, I have not had a chance to, but I will.
Okay, it's right across the creek from the Shady Rest. I sat there and took a video of it yesterday, and of course, here in this state you can't do a whole lot of that kind of stuff. But I put it over there not only for the deer. I was watching an old squirrel. He was gnawing on it the other day. That all animals like salt, and or whatever. And when I put those things out, I sort of put them out. We talked about to ward off mange for the bears. There's bears over there too.
Right.
And I've noticed since I put them out, though, of course, I know the deer are licking on them, and saw that doe doing it. I've noticed the flies have disappeared off of them. Now I was reading about that, and it said that sulfur is not a deterrent for flies. Well, something is, but anyway, and of course there again, I'm not saying that did it. We've had some cool weather at night here now. I'm sure that has a lot to do with the fly hatch.
Yes,
but I'm going to continue to watch that and see what happens. That's sort of I'm always experimenting. Okay. But
absolutely. Down in our part of the country for years, the cow people have had sulfur mineral blocks or sulfur salt blocks, and that surely helped with the ticks. I'm not going to say it helped with the flies, but I do know that it really deterred the ticks, or it really reduced the number of ticks to almost zero of the animals that were consuming some of that. So it certainly does work.
Yes. So anyway, let's get back to the bears and everything else that we want to talk about. So the floor is yours.
Because I think of what you do there, and with the food plots and all those things, it provides food for a lot of things, including the pollinators and those kind of things that are so important to perpetuate what vegetation is there. But with the food plots too, you take some of the pressure off the native browse, and that's something that people forget sometimes. That particularly when times are a little bit tougher, that if you have food plots, it really kind of helps that native browse that's there. So that benefits not just the deer or the bears or the turkeys or the coons and possums. Everything kind of benefits whenever you really have a good habitat. And that kind of, again, the food plots can take some of the pressure off of it, of that native browse at certain times of the year, and that'll help the habitat in the long run as well too. As far as the health of those animals, they need food, water, and people sometimes too forget how important water is to wildlife. And with the creek that you have there, to me, oh my gosh, and then you've got plenty cover as well too. And of course, the food is there, so you've got all the prerequisites that are required as far as any kind of wildlife species are concerned. But particularly the game animals, they seem to be doing real well. But I got a feeling your butterflies, your bees, and all the little bugs are doing really well as well too. And that too helps, particularly on the little turkeys that you have. They depend a whole lot, as do a lot of the songbirds, on insects. Those first part of their life, particularly in terms of getting them into getting them to get them to mature.
Yes, sir. Exactly right. And when I first started this food plot thing, I didn't realize how much it would benefit everything. Like you say, all the way down to even the beetle grubs. But
yes, right.
Because crows and what all kinds of birds dig those things up. That's one of their food sources. But this year, I put in buckwheat and sunflowers, and didn't a whole lot of that make it past three inches. because the deer mowed them off.
Yes, sir.
But I was hoping that some of the sunflowers would make it, so I'd have more bees and butterflies. But anyway, it is what it is. But it was really fun out in one of my sections of my food plots. I did not plow it. I just sod planted it, and with buckwheat and rye. And that's the only buckwheat that made it. You know, the rest of it, because it was so dry, where the deer are going through gnawing it off, they just pull it up by the roots because, you know, the ground's so soft.
Right.
But anyway, just like you say, and I know you saw the old doe. She was chewing on that oak leaf the other day. And just like you say, you know, that it's a balance of what they need, and deer, or if people could go by what deer eat, it would be a whole lot healthier society, you know. But because they're pretty good dietitians, you know. And
they are. They have an innate ability to know what is good for them and what they need, and that to me is where the variety comes in that you have in terms of not just the native plants, but also as far as the food plots that you do. I tell people all the time, you know, they're ruminants like a cow, but a cow's got a big old square muzzle. She runs her tongue out there, she pulls in a big old clump of grass. That deer got a pointed muzzle so that it can reach in and find the most nutritious part of any plant. And that's really kind of the difference between the two of them when you get right down to it. And that variety makes all the difference in the world.
It does. That is a fact. And now this variety that I planted, I see it had rye, triticale, turnips, crimson clover, barcine clover, forage peas, and then I added the sunflowers and buckwheat. Now, what I'm going to do here real soon, I am going to plow that part up that I saw it planted. I was hoping I was going to have more rye in it to turn into a manure into it,
right.
You know. But it is what it is, but I'm going to put I'm going to sow that back with sorghum and winter peas, you know, just fall stuff, and we're going to see what happens there. I'm hoping some of the peas will be able to grow anyway, but
I bet they will.
Yeah, I've got an abundance of deer here. I promise you, if I went back there and threw a spotlight in that thing at night, it'd probably look like Christmas in New York City. But you know, but everything likes it. Everything's enjoying it, and so I'm seeing a big difference. You were talking a while ago about Purina, you know, before the state of Virginia decided that we weren't going to be able to feed deer anymore. Right. In my feeders, I would put Antler Max, Purina Antler Max, and buddy, did I ever see a difference in the antler size?
Yes, sir.
You know?
Yes, sir. And again, it comes down to that, and you're doing it now too, though, with your food plots. But it comes down to that daily thing. Mm-hmm. So very often, people, when they think in terms of whitetail deer, they think in terms of a very short period of time in nutrition. Mainly, you know, in antler development when the fawns are there, and then, you know, is there something where they're going to eat where I can find them? But it's so important to have that really good nutritional level, and in terms of quality, but also in terms of quantity, because a deer will eat several pounds of forage every day. When we had deer in pens for research purposes, where they were eating dry feed primarily, they were eating like 2 to 2.5 pounds of dry feed a day at a minimum. And of course, as they got bigger, they ate bigger. So, you know, you equate that into forage, and we're talking about dry weight. We're not talking about wet weight or leaves or that kind of thing. So it takes a lot for that deer to survive on a daily basis, just with a basic nutrition. But if you really want them to do good, you know, you want to get that nutrition level up in terms of particularly the quality, but also the quantity as well too. And that's what you're doing with the food plots and with the management that you're doing elsewhere as far as the the rest of the trees and the bushes and everything else that are out there.
Yes, sir. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I had a neighbor come down here several years ago. It was after my dad passed, and I've got old fence rows out here that, of course, I don't have cattle, but I leave those old fence rows up for honeysuckle to grow up, and of course briars and all that. And he asked me, he said, "Why don't you clean that stuff up?" And I said, "Well, let me ask you." So I said, he loves to hunt deer.
Yes,
and he loves to seeing all the abundance of deer around here. I said, "Well, listen, let me ask you something." I said, "It might be an eyesore to you, but I said, in the wintertime to a deer, it's golden."
Amen.
And that's, to me, that's one of the more, one of the most important seasons that you need to supplement feed. You need to have a supplemental feed for deer, and they love that wild forage like that.
Oh, absolutely.
They'll work on it. And that's why I put the sorghum in. People ask me, "Why don't you plant corn?" Well, once they eat that corn, it's gone. But that sorghum, you got a multitude of heads out through there, and they'll eat on it all winter long.
Absolutely, the deer will. They'll knock some off. You're knocking some of the ground for birds and all those other kind of things. And you're right. I get tickled because I've been on places where there'd be a fair amount of greenbrier or smilax, and I've got a friend of mine in Oklahoma. I was up there with him not too terribly long ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, and he goes, "Man," and we were talking about deer habitat and all. He said, "I got to get rid of all this greenbrier," and I said, "Whoa, you're what?" He said, "This blasted green barbed wire," he says, "I can't stand it." I said, "The reason you have the deer that you do, the quality of the deer that you do, is because of that greenbrier. It's there year round." And I said, "The only thing that I would do," I said, "I would go in there and I'd take a machete, and in some instances where it's thick and all the vegetation is 5 foot, 6 foot off the ground, I says, go in there and chop it down to where it grows from kind of like a hard tuber." And I said, "You want to get it down to where those animals can get it." And I said, "It is one of the best deer browsers there is across North America when you get right down to it, particularly because it's available year round." And so he started doing that and then doing some controlled burns in some of those areas, and greenbrier, would come back from the bottom, and it has made a tremendous difference. And I love to be out with somebody somewhere, and we're looking around, looking at deer browse and that kind of stuff. And I always kind of sidle over to one of the smilax or greenbrier, and I kind of start looking at it, and they can see where those deer have been nipping the edges, and they go, "Are they eating that stuff?" And I go, "Absolutely. It's one of the better things you can have out here." And so I try to encourage greenbrier, and it responds well to fertilization, as does Japanese honeysuckle. There are a lot of times I'll mention honeysuckle and I get fussed at. "Oh my God, no, we don't want honeysuckle." I go, "You want Japanese honeysuckle, because the deer will absolutely love it during the wintertime. And it responds to fertilization as well."
They will. I'll tell you another thing they like too. They like my tame blackberries. they'll eat those things off, but I don't mind it. I honestly, one of the management is year round, as you well know.
Oh, yes.
One of the favorite things I love to do on a cold, snowy night when the moon's up bright, I can raise the shades on my windows with my binoculars, and I can watch deer. Last year I had 21 deer standing right out here, maybe 20 feet from my house in those blackberries. I watched them in that snow, and it just, I'm in the dark, sort of in my skivvies, standing there watching those. But that's what I like to do. And when I see that kind of stuff, I'm thinking, that's management.
It's working.
That's keeping them going. Yeah. And you're talking about the greenbrier. There again, my dad, we used to run around, cutting them all off, and of course had to then. He had hogs and cattle. That was his livelihood. Right. I don't have that now, and so that's exactly what I do. I'll go in after it's sort of matured on the top, and I'll cut the tops of it off so it will sprout back and get that little shoot, and that's what the deer like. They love the end of those little shoots, them. And so management. I'll tell people this, when you look at a place and you think it's something that you need to get rid of, if you like deer hunting, or if you like hunting altogether, the best thing you can do in your mind is just think, wait a minute, that's habitat right there. That's wildlife habitat. And if you don't need the land, leave it alone,
Absolutely. And that way everything benefits from it when you get right down to it, all different wildlife species. Sam, I've got to go here in just a little bit, but I've got a bunch of stuff that we're doing for the Dallas Safari Club and Texas Wildlife Association. But one other thing I want to talk about with you is you've been, and I don't want you to tell your formula or anything like that, but you've been working on an attractant that hopefully somewhere down the way between you and me, you'll start marketing that, because the videos that you've sent me of the deer coming to it, the bears coming to it, I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing something right. And again, don't tell people what it is, but tell me a little bit about that, if you don't mind, if you can do it that way.
Well, real quick, Larry, I started working on this stuff actually back in the early 90s.
Yes, sir.
The first time I ever used one of the ingredients in this stuff, I put it on me, and I walked out to my stand. And when I walked into that stand, I walked probably a quarter of a mile into the woods.
Yes, sir.
And when I got there, I had just gotten to my stand. At that time, I didn't have tree stands or anything like that. I didn't even know what one was. But anyway,
right.
I was sitting under these two pine saplings, and I had just got there. A good old frosty morning, it was clear, and I heard something coming up the hollow, right the path that I had just come up, and I said, "That's a deer coming." I hadn't been sitting there 5 minutes. So I got up and I stood in behind these pine saplings, and lots of times I'll take my rifle and put it right up in front of my face just to break an outline. Okay.
Right.
So, and when I did that, those does, there was 5 does, they were following that path right up where I had come. They were sniffing. I said, wow. And that was 5 minutes. Okay. So then they came in on the other side of those pine trees from those little pine saplings. I could have reached out and slapped one of them. I mean, she had her nose stuck right back in there looking right at me, but I didn't move. Well, they soon just, they didn't run. They just sort of veered off to the left and down over the ridge. And one but a little bit, I heard something else coming. I said, that tells me what's going on. So I looked, and here came 8-point buck out the ridge just above where they had come, because they'll parallel. They won't come up the same path most of the time. And sure enough, here he came. So I popped him. Got it took me a pretty good buck that morning. But yeah, you've seen those videos of the stuff, and it's there's let me tell you this, and a lot of people will not agree with this. I hear people talking about, we're fooling a deer's nose. I'm sorry. You're not going to fool a deer's nose. A human scent to a deer is a human scent. Yes, you can confuse it, and that's what this stuff does. That confuses them. They don't know exactly what it is, and anytime you confuse a deer's nose, he's going to come looking to find out where that source is.
They're curious. You're right. You're exactly right. I can't wait to try some of it down here in Texas. I know you mentioned to Luke that you'd send some down this way, but we're going to really spend some time talking about this, and people may not know, but I'm starting to come out with a video version as well too of our podcast, and we'll have a bunch of that showing putting it out, having the animals come in, and all those other kind of good things. And then when you start getting this to where you want to go to the market with it, then we'll figure out a way to make more and more people aware of it. I got a feeling it's going to be available in a limited edition kind of thing.
It will be.
What I've seen, I'm not sure we want everybody to have it, but I think it makes a lot of difference there to those people who really love the outdoors and really love seeing deer, and whether it's or some of the other wildlife, or whether it's from a hunting perspective or a photography perspective, or just wanting to, see wildlife. I think there's benefits there that all those kind of people can reap.
Yep, and it's not, it's not a food stuff, so it's not illegal, even in the state of Virginia. So, but anyway, yeah, we're in a development stage of it, and like I say, I'm gonna send some to you and Luke for you all to try down there in Texas. That's one of my the things I want to do is make sure it works everywhere, because I don't want to be, marketing something that's not going to work for everybody that buys it,
Exactly.
And in all areas, that's not what I want to do. I want to be honest about it. I want it to work for people, So that's not what I'm in this management thing for. I just want to help people. I want people to enjoy the outdoors and score on that old big buck if they can, and this stuff will help them get there.
Absolutely. Well, we'll keep people more abreast of this as we get a little bit closer into the hunting seasons and get a chance to get it down here in Texas and play with it a little bit as well. Seems to work year round. Doesn't seem to make a bit of difference whether it's fall, winter, spring, summer, or any points in between all that from the videos that you've been showing.
It's a year-round attractant. It's a year-round attractant. You've seen the deer looking right in those cameras, where you can see what their antler development's going to be, and even the does. You can see their condition also. So yes, sir.
I can't wait to get it down here. Before we leave, tell people one more time how to get on your sites to where they can see the videos, because, ladies and gentlemen, this guy gets some absolutely fantastic stuff. Real world. I mean, it is out of this world as far as I'm concerned, the video footage that he gets, and you're very regular with presenting it. So where's the place to go to?
All right, it's Craig's, CRAIG''S, Creek Deer and Wildlife Management. And I'm not going to confuse them with giving my YouTube channel right now. Also, what I'll do, I've got it on there so they can get to that off of that site.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
Anyway, that's how they can get to me. And we haven't gotten to talk about the bears much, but maybe if we do another one of these later on, we can talk about the bears.
I want to come back to the bears because I've got a bear hunt coming up this year on the Choctaw in October, and we'll visit off site here a little bit, but then definitely want to get you back on to talk specifically about the bears up there, because you're living with them, and I can learn a lot, and I'm sure a lot of other people can learn a lot from your experiences with them up there. So, Sam, thank you so much for joining us around the campfire. Ladies and gentlemen, go to Sam's site, go to his Facebook site, go to his YouTube site from there. You'll be absolutely thrilled with what he presents and how he does it, and the practical information that he provides from the property that he manages up there in Virginia. And Sam, thank you so much for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, we'll see y'all right back here next week for another episode of DSC's Campfires. Look forward to talking to you
Larry,
then.
thank you, buddy. Thank you, sir.
Always my pleasure. Sam, we'll see you around the campfire. We'll see you in person in November.
DSC's Campfires with Larry Weishuhn has also been brought to you by The Crown Bar in LaGrange, Texas, the Texas Wildlife Association, Double Nickel Taxidermy, and Burnham Brothers Game Calls.